Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're taking a look at another Titans Return toy. So we're going to take a look this time at Galvatron. Now, of course, we all know from the Transformers lore of the Generation 1 era that Galvatron is basically the Unicron upgraded version of Megatron. But in some other continuities, such as the UK Marvel Comics, Galvatron was a separate character all onto his own. And seeing as the Titans Return line had both Megatron and Galvatron in them together, they're probably going with that same route. Despite the fact that in the Prime Wars trilogy that was done to promote these toys, Galvatron did not make an appearance in it. At any rate, this is probably one that many of the G1 fans went after, since he was more accurate to the animation model than what the Generation 1 version was. And there haven't been too many toys done of Galvatron to resemble that mode, so this was probably one to go for. At any rate, it is a nice and imposing figure. This time we have a whole cannon as one assembly rather than two like the G1 era one was. And of course, since he's now fully more articulated, he also doesn't have a battery-powered function. Which, that's a mixed bag, but you can understand that. However, this one, being the size that he is also a triple changer, just like the original, but the gun mode has been replaced, as it is harder to get a toy gun made under current U.S. toy laws. At any rate, let's take a look at Galvatron's articulation. His articulation in the head is pretty limited. You can, to a degree, turn the Titan Master a bit, but unfortunately the mask that's there for the front of Galvatron's head kind of holds it in place a bit, so you're kind of stuck with it there. When you move his shoulder pads, Galvatron's arms can raise up about so far, and his arms can rotate at the shoulder all the way. Galvatron does have joints in both locations of his elbows, so his arms can be bent at the elbow like so. And he does have a swivel at the bicep, so you can swivel his arms inward at least. The treads for his cannon mode tend to get in the way for further arm movements. Galvatron can spread his legs apart into a full splits. His legs are also capable of rotating at the thigh. He can, does he turn at the hips too? Not especially. He can also raise his leg up at the hip about 90 degrees, and he can bend at the knee roughly 90 degrees. So this Galvatron is definitely superior to his Generation 1 counterpart in the fact that he can move. Taking a look at his accessories, Galvatron's chief weapon, as he falls on the table, is, of course, his cannon. And as you can see, this is a very, very large piece. It is all done up as one piece, so it does not come apart like the original one did separate. It would detach to have just the cannon portion here for when it was on the robot, so that way the orange barrel could plug in as the cannon barrel. But this unit does not do that, so it's kind of thank God for that. But this piece here does have a section that flips on the back, which will get explained later. And then, of course, like all Titan Masters, his head is removable. You just got to work around the face mask there. And we transform this little figure. And this is Nucleon, his binary bonded partner. Nucleon apparently grants Galvatron a universal systems upgrade that gives him very powerful but unstable results, which is kind of an homage to the fact that Galvatron was considered to be mentally unstable throughout the Generation 1 era after his battle with Rodimus Prime. And of course, there are some earlier versions of Nucleon here that bore quite a resemblance to the G1 Megatron in his animation mode. It's kind of hard to tell it from this picture here, on the toy. Of course, you fold him up into head mode, and it's still kind of lost on him. Of course, the name Nucleon is tied to the Generation 1 era. Nucleon was the alternate energon source that Optimus Prime found inside of a black hole that eventually led the Transformers to becoming Action Masters. So it's nice to see the name gets reused for something else. There, now that we've covered Galvatron's loose parts, let's transform him and take a look at his other modes. Now here, of course, is Galvatron's cannon mode. And while this is the main mode that we would expect out of Galvatron, I'm not really impressed with it that much, folks. It's partially due to the fact that the added kibble for the third mode that he has tends to get in the way of it here, as you can see down beneath him. Because he has a third mode that we're going to show you here in a moment. Don't want to spoil it just yet, but seeing with how that sits, it makes the cannon mode not sit properly, flat and level on the ground. So in a lot of ways, that's kind of a disappointment. Then there's the odd coloring choice here on the top of it. I don't know how well this is coming off on the camera, but this indentation area here that's used to lock the body from twisting around is a different shade of purple than the rest of Galvatron's body, so it stands out pretty badly on it, folks. So it's kind of, yeah, I'd like to see a new Galvatron, but this clearly is not what I was hoping for on his cannon mode. At any rate, let's get the third mode going and see how that looks. And then here we are in his final mode. Galvatron appears to be some sort of spaceship, which is kind of the core essence of the Triple Changers. They're meant to have a surface attack mode and an airborne attack mode. So this would obviously be Galvatron's flight mode, and I gotta say, folks, I'm not impressed. Truth be told, I am not impressed by it at all. There's nothing back here to even that looks like the engines for how he gets into flight. I mean, I know it could be a Cybertronian one, but still, there should be something to make it look a little bit like it's capable of it. This does not look like it's capable of getting off the ground. And unfortunately, while it does incorporate Galvatron's cannon in it, it doesn't look right being right there under the nose. It just comes off looking weird. And of course, we've got the bright orange canopy here that we can stick Nucleon or any other Titan Master inside, and then you just fold that on down, and there it goes, all closed up nice and tight. Of course, how well does it swoosh, since it is a flying machine? Swoosh. It's a bit on the big side, but of course, it's mainly due to that long cannon being there. So I kind of got to be careful so I don't hit the camera or the light in here, but it does swoosh fairly well for something that we can't really make heads or tails of. But now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of this version of Galvatron? Well, this is going to be a mixed bag, folks. In my opinion, of course. Because, in my opinion, this is not a great toy. The robot mode is the best mode for him, hands down. It looks like Galvatron, as many of us growing up remember him. It may not be a perfect match for how he looked, but it is one that checks off a lot of the right marks for Galvatron. The biggest complaint that I have against the robot mode is the mask that they use to form the rest of the head. The mask makes it impossible to turn Galvatron's head, whereas a lot of the others had that ability to have the head turned. So that's kind of a strike against it for having that we can't even play with. Then when we get to his alternate modes, both of them are terrible. Mainly due to the fact of this forced gimmick of making them a triple changer. Now, in some cases, I could see it working for Galvatron, and I got nothing against Galvatron being a triple changer. It's just this way doesn't work. It just doesn't work the way it's set up. The cockpit section of the starship gets in the way of the cannon mode and doesn't allow it to sit properly. And then when it's in spaceship mode, the cannon is obviously a little overpowered for this thing. It takes up too much of the room. That and the ship really doesn't look space-worthy at all. So this kind of chalks down more of an idea of what were they thinking instead of, wow, this is a great product. Hopefully in the upcoming War for Cybertron series, we'll get a better Galvatron that'll pay better homage to his original form. While this one is as close as we're likely going to be able to get and afford, I think I'll wait for the next one. And that concludes my review of the Titans Return version of Galvatron. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and join our ranks. Make sure to also ring the bell so you'll be notified when we post new content. Also, share this video with your friends and fellow collectors. That's what helps this channel grow. And share your thoughts about Galvatron in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.